The Japanese invasion of Korea, also known as the Imjin War or 7-Year War, occurred between 1592 and 1598. The invasions were launched by your main man, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the powerful daimyo samurai warlord who had finally unified Japan. Now this guy had caught feelings for China, and knowing that invading Korea would be one of the easiest ways to get to his primary goal of conquering China, he would invade Korea. Now, some historians also believed that this invasion was also an attempt to keep his war-hungry, battle-hardened samurai armies busy. In April 1592, with an army of around 160,000, Japanese forces made up of predominantly samurai would invade Korea from multiple points along its coastlines. With their well-trained crack forces, the Japanese invaders, armed with the most advanced weaponry of the time, would quickly overwhelm any Korean forces that tried to resist them. Using hand cannons, also known as arquebus or matchlock guns, which had a distance of up to 200 meters, the samurai, along with their Japanese infantry, would clap the hastily thrown together Korean forces that tried to block them. After repeatedly getting completely curb-stomped by the Japanese, it would soon become clear to the Korean generals that the daimyo armies were by far like nothing they had ever faced. With the majority of the Korean army being decimated and being unable to effectively confront your boys samurai, they would resort to hit-and-run guerrilla tactics as the samurai armies continue to advance northwards towards Seoul. Now, it is the perception that samurai were noble, stoic, spiritual, and tempered wizard-like warriors who had self-control and decency. While that may be true for many other samurai, however, the samurai who invaded Korea during the Imjin War were reported to be some hardcore, brutal, unhinged dudes. Throughout the 7-Year War, their brutality and love for head collecting would be put on full display for the world to see. Butchering and pillaging and doing all kinds of unspeakable horrors to the populations, the samurai armies would wreak havoc throughout the land in an effort to break the spirit of the Korean people. Now, after taking the capital city of Seoul, the samurai armies would continue their push northwards, capturing major cities and towns all along the way. However, on June the 27th, as they pushed further into Korea, they would finally meet stiff resistance during the Battle of the Imjin River. The Japanese vanguard army, numbering around 20,000 under the command of Kinoshi Yaganaka and Soyo Satoshi, would arrive at the river to find their path blocked by the Koreans on the other side of the river. The Koreans had also stripped the area bare of any boats or building materials, making crossing the river very challenging and dangerous for the Japanese. Korean forces numbering around 10,000 would amass themselves in a web of makeshift fortifications along the river. Determined to defend their homeland from the samurai invaders, the Koreans would put up a stiff resistance, brutally repelling and evicting the lives of any samurai who attempted to cross over the river. Although the Korean forces were in ideal suitable positions for defense, the Korean army was hampered by lack of clear chain of command. Some of the defenders were not under the same command, including about 3,000 men from northern Korea under a different command. However, your main daimyo dudes, General Kinoshi Yaganaka and General Soyotoshi, and their samurai armies would attempt to negotiate an agreement with the Koreans, asking for safe passage through to China, but the Koreans would ignore these offers. So the Japanese, feeling some type of way and seeing that after 10 days of fighting, the Koreans had not budged, decided to conduct a false retreat in an attempt to lure the Koreans out of their defenses. Seeing the Japanese forces withdrawing, the Koreans would take the bait. One inexperienced commander, Senkil, feeling those good vibes about how things were looking, would immediately order his men to use their boats to cross the river and attack the Japanese positions. However, an older, more experienced commander, Yukagan, tried to warn your boy that it was most likely a trap. But after being unable to convince him, Yudokigan would wind up being called a coward and chicken by some of the soldiers. This would make him feel some type of way. So not wanting to be labeled a coward, he would end up leading the charge himself. However, a number of experienced veteran soldiers felt that the charge was a bad idea and decided not to join the attack. Korean forces crossed over the river and rushed past the abandoned Japanese campsites, running right smack dab into the ambush. The samurai warriors sprang their trap and fired on them with their matchlock cannons along with their bows and arrows, instantly deleting scores of Korean soldiers. The first initial barrage was so devastating that waves of Korean soldiers were clapped before they could even even realize what was happening. Before the smoke could even settle, the samurai using spears and katana swords would charge right into the confused and dazed Korean soldiers, deleting them and chasing them back towards the river where they would be slaughtered. Now you can pretty much imagine how the Korean soldiers must have felt. After completely getting wrecked by the samurai ambush, they were now desperately trying to get back to their boats to escape across the river, but the Japanese forces had already cut off their retreat. Capturing the Korean boats, the samurai would begin to cross over the river. Senkil and his homie Yukrigan, in the midst of the chaos, would both be caught by the samurai and deleted as the Korean forces were routed by the Japanese. The remaining Korean forces on the other side of the river would panic and retreat, resulting in a defeat. Some estimate around 10,000 Korean soldiers being lost, with very few Japanese soldiers being lost. Battles like this would continue at an alarming rate. However, the battle at sea wasn't going so well for your dudes, the samurai. In fact, it was quickly turning into a complete nightmare for the Japanese Navy, as the Korean Navy, under the command of your main man, Yi Sun-sin, would begin to curb stomp the Japanese ships in some pretty epic ways. Using turtle ships, which were pretty much like armored floating tanks, the Koreans would seem unstoppable at sea. Being horrified knowing that his navy was being smoked, your main dude, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, would come to see that conquering Korea was far more difficult than anything he had imagined. The Imjin War had only just begun. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment. Feedback is much appreciated. You guys have a wonderful day. Much love. Peace.